We're here at the 1998 MTV Magic Championship out in the pier with topless guys. Yeah. It's like, what the? All right, and just like that, we're back. We have hinted at this before. We've been talking about it kind of in the background of this conversation. But we have to talk about universes beyond. A very controversial topic that a lot of people have very strong opinions about, and I'm sure Jimmy is one of them. So let's get to that. Everybody is talking about the ongoing, unfolding controversy with universes beyond. And when you and I arranged to talk today, I saw it as a great opportunity to explore this topic from somebody who has his finger on the pulse of the true community ethos. You were in the trenches every day playing the game against all manners of people. Everyone from the timmiest Timmy all the way up to the spikiest Spike, and tons of people in between. And one of the cool things about these game nights videos, I love the intros are so awesome. I'm playing a deck built around this guy, and there's a graphic. It's just an incredible production, honestly. There's a lot of universes beyond in these videos. People are excited about their universes beyond cards. They're happy to build a whole commander around a Spider-Man hero or a Marvel hero or, whatever it happens to be. So I'm wondering, as someone who has been playing Magic since 1994, you got into it when you were just a little kid. What do you think about universes beyond as a general sort of idea? What's your current stance on it?
I mean, I think the idea is great. I think because I remember back in the day, there was a Star Wars card game I was playing, there was a Marvel card game I was playing, and there was a Magic card game I was playing. And had you combined all of them into one, I think I would have been pretty okay with it at that point in time. I did like the Magic art and I thought it was super cool. But if it was more of the current version of Magic, I think I would have been totally okay with it as well back in the day because I just wouldn't have known different. I personally don't think that the Magic IP is that strong. To be honest, I know that we have our Jason, our Chandra, and our Lilianas and stuff, but the characters aren't particularly so resonant that having Universes Beyond be a part of the game ruins Magic's IP as a whole for me. I think the thing that players really just miss is just that classic feel of the art, the Goblin Sharpshooters, classic original art, the original art for Chaos Warp. Or not Chaos Warp. Yeah, there's a new version of Chaos Warp that has that old feel from the original artists and stuff. I think that old OG feel is what a lot of players are missing, and they are completely correct that Universes Beyond dilutes the card pool and the feel of Magic to the point where it doesn't have that you can't just open or look at a random 7 cards these days and just be oh cool, this has all got that old border frame, old feel to it. Now there's all these different treatments, these different looking frames, these secret layers that make the game look almost it's a mockery of itself at sometimes, especially when you've got Dwight Schrute sitting in the same pack as the Llanowar Elves or whatever, or the same hand, So I think there is a lot of merit to why people don't like what Universes Beyond has done to the game. There's also a lot of plus sides to what it's done to the game in terms of I have so many new friends that are old friends from gaming or whatever, people I've met from many, many years ago that are now all into Magic because of Universes Beyond, and they would not be here otherwise. And so as a result, it's I've got to balance the fact that it's so cool. I can play with all these new friends. I can introduce them to the game. I can show them the different aspects of the game that aren't Universes Beyond and encourage them to do different things and try different things out. But the only reason they are here to begin with is because of UB. And they may never have played the game otherwise if UB hadn't existed in the first place. So there's that balance there that I think for me particularly, because I have so many friends that are into gaming and just as a result have a lot of joy in seeing these people play Magic now because of it. That is a big part of why Universes Beyond is more okay to someone like me. At the same time, I do bemoan the fact that so many of our current sets are all UB, and there's just not as many I did enjoy the period of time of Magic when we were doing the 3-set blocks. I know that they weren't quite as popular and they didn't sell super well, so that's why we sort of switched to the 1 block per thing. And now it's just you get one sort of setting per set as opposed to 3 sets that are all around the same setting. And so there is a lot that has been lost, but there's also a lot that has been gained. And so it's difficult, I think, to really have an opinion about it that is going to be one that is widely accepted. Everyone is going to take issue with something that a lot of people will take issue with something I just said in that last, 2 minutes of talking or whatever. Some people will be like, I don't care about the new players. Like, I just care about my experience. Or some people will be like, I do care about the new players, but I don't want it at the expense of making this game so diluted that it doesn't even look like the same game I fell in love with.
One of the things that people kind of, I don't know, neurologically reject about Universes Beyond is this idea of encroaching IPs, where you have something that just feels so discordant with the Magic universe that that it's jarring to see it. An analogy that I have is, imagine you're watching Lord of the Rings in that final pivotal scene where Frodo and Sam are at the edge, the cracks of doom, sitting there with the ring. And Frodo is holding the ring out, ready to drop it. And Sam's, let it go. And he's staring at it. And then he turns around and says, the ring is mine. And instead of Gollum jumping on him, out of nowhere, Legolas comes bounding into the room with his bow out. And as just for a second, as his cape unfurls into the camera, it says Mountain Dew on it. And Legolas fires an arrow and it knocks the ring free and it sails over Frodo's head and falls in the lava and the world is saved. That's sort of like, I think, what people are feeling sometimes with Universes Beyond. And I'm wondering, are there any cards that kind of evoke that feeling? Like, it felt like a bridge too far, like real shark jumping.
Yeah, there's a funny, I think back in the day, it was in Mexico when they showed Star Wars, they would insert an advertisement into the movie. And there's this hilarious video, you can look it up, where like Obi-Wan reaches to pick up the lightsaber in the New Hope to show to Luke for the first time. But it cuts to a commercial of a similarly costumed hand reaching and then picking up a beer. And it says the name of the beer. And it was just like that. That was the way that they worked the advertisement into the game. So it's similar to your Mountain Dew example. I think the card that did that to me when I first saw it was Guy in a Chair, I think is what it's called. It's like it's basically like the friend of Spider-Man that's helping him out, but it was just like there's just the name like Guy in a Chair, like it felt like a temporary card name in the card file because they couldn't think of something else for it, or that, or like Bagel and Schmear or whatever. I was like, I don't know if this is my Magic anymore. But I will say a card like Peter Parker's Camera, which is this like really nifty little artifact. It's like a really powerful card actually. Is one that like doesn't sound great, like Peter Parker's Camera as a card that you play in Magic the Gathering, but the card itself is awesome. So there are cards.
Interesting. Does it get a pass?
Yeah, that one gets a pass, but Guy in a Chair, not so much for me. It's difficult because in UB, and this is a big problem with UB, is that there are so many named characters that you can't have just your random like goblin conspirator or whatever it is. Like it's always got to be like this person's name is like Jane Dawn. And they had an arc in this thing because in the comic, when they appeared, you can't just have them be as like girl number 5 or whatever, So as a result, like that's a reason why you see an explosion of legendary creatures is because, and now common and uncommon, is because of the nature of how the UB sort of like worlds work.
Got it. Makes sense. Guy in a Chair.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Guy in a Chair.
For Jimmy.
Yeah, Guy in a Chair took it a little too far. I need to look this up to make sure it is. Yeah, Guy in the Chair. Sorry.
Isn't there like a hot dog stand or something also in that set?
There's like a pigeon as well. Yeah, it's
like, what are we really doing here?
Yeah, it's a little too far. And that's why worlds like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit feel way better, and Warhammer
so much.
Feel much better as UB sets as opposed to like New York set number 3 in a row.
Honestly, Arabian Nights is a Universes Beyond set.
It is. And there's no legendary creatures in it, by the way, which is really interesting. Yeah.
All the ones that should be are not, like King Suleiman, for example. There's several of them.
Aladdin or whatever. Yeah. So
exactly. I have Ali's from Cairo. Look,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're all here.
Please don't cast Earthquake. Exactly.
Yeah. Arabian Nights was technically the first Universes Beyond set. So was Portal 3 Kingdoms, I guess, if you think about it. So
yeah, that's true. It's set in some Chinese dynasty.
Yeah, like Roman said the 3 Kingdoms.
Horsemanship. All right, cool.
And so I think we are in a world where the sense of loss is more profound than ever because of social media and the fact that we're all connected. Losing something that you care about, like Magic, just hits you that much harder because it's like, what else am I losing today? Like it feels like I've already lost so much already. And now this is something on top of it. And then you go online, and social media is absolutely not a indicator of what real life is. It is not even getting the same reality as other people. You're getting a very specific version of it that might push you down a more extremist, rabbit hole or whatever. We've seen that happen time and time again. Totally. And so I think just as a result, you are in a scenario where reality is not true to what actual reality is. You're getting a very specific version of it being fed to you online. And you're also dealing with the fact that you've got all this information just pounding at your door all the time. And it's just being unfiltered sometimes, or just being delivered to you in a way that's not being controlled whatsoever. Right? I have a child, and when I see stuff that he should not be watching, I don't show it to him. But when you just jump on X or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, you are being shown stuff that you never had a choice of deciding whether or not you should have that being shown to you. And so I think as a result, the outcry around Universes Beyond is valid, right? I think the upsetness that people have is valid, but you're also being thrown into an environment constantly, especially if you're a chronically online person, that is not necessarily indicative of what the true nature of reality is. Because I know so many people that love the game because of UB, and I've had firsthand testimonial of it. And then you go to a MagicCon where people are in real life and not on their phones the whole time, and the amount of joy that's there is immense. And maybe they don't love UB, but it's not affecting them in the way that they're in every single comment of every single thing that someone posts about UB, calling it slop, posting pictures of people throwing up, right? And you go into a comment section, and you would think that 99% of the world hates Universes Beyond, when that's absolutely not the case. So I think we just have to be very careful as consumers of everything in this world, how we're being shown things, and just recognize from the get-go that the reality that is being portrayed to you is not necessarily accurate to the reality of what the world is at right now. And so that's just one of the many things that, as a longtime user of the internet, as someone that was on the internet literally from the earliest days of the internet, have just learned that hey, I shouldn't accept the reality that's being shown to me just because that's what's being shown to me. And that's something you learn as you grow up as well. But I think a lot of people don't necessarily have that, especially younger generations who don't know a world that even existed before any of this was there.
That sentiment, that idea that just because something is uncomfortable, makes you feel uncomfortable, that it's necessarily bad, is a fallacy that I have reinforced many times with my own child, actually. The idea being that the hard things, the things that make you uncomfortable, often are the result of you growing. It's like your entrenchment is pushing back against the thing because it needs to, because you require that. You're at some sort of weird impasse in your growth, and the discomfort is necessary to move past it. In my own case, it was awakening in a way when I actually had a conversation about this topic. And incidentally, just hearing you say that, your son is very, very lucky to have you as a dad. Honestly.
Thank you. So I appreciate that.
It's wonderful to just hear. It's really wonderful to just hear that perspective. Thank you for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had historically many conversations and many times on the internet where I have upset people to an immense degree. When I called out people like Dr. Disrespect or Logan Paul or whatever, I've had people say some of the grossest, disgusting, racist things to me. And there have been times too where I'm like, hey, do you want to jump on a Zoom call and just talk? And you find out that after talking to that person for 10 minutes, that part of them that is hurting so bad for them to say that stuff dissolves. There's a very real human at the other end of it, and everyone walks away feeling a lot better about the situation. And I think the fact that we are in this society where we're just taught that you're either on one side or the other. And if you don't agree with all my points, you're a Nazi. It's guys, what are we doing here? We're not talking to each other as humans because we're put in, again, that's a vacuum that what social media and the internet is. And again, all I have to do is go to a MagicCon or go to an LGS. And for the most part, you find that you can have really pleasant conversations. And if someone's being a total dick, you can still find a way to just send love at them and melt all of that away by just having a very real, honest conversation, right? Not everything has to become such a violent, vehemently, toxic thing. And so I think when you have, and that's a big problem I have with Reddit, is that it allows these communities to fester. And then as a result, they become these massive echo chambers for whatever it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you just get those absolutely toxic, awful things that you read on these subreddits. And you're like, man, I can't believe that we let things get to this point. But that's where we're at. But there's still, to me, is always a very real human at the other end of it. So I think that to me is I'm trying to live a life where I'm trying to be compassionate, not to the point where I hurt myself so badly or I don't see something for what it is and walk into a pit of thorns or whatever. But I still think that and I've from direct experience, I've challenge a lot of these people to have just conversations with me over a phone call or whatever. And 99% of the time, it ends up in a result where you're like, yeah, that person was just hurting. They didn't actually mean the things that they said, or they were just driven to these viewpoints because they knew it was engagement bait.
It displays incredible empathy. Honestly, it really honestly speaks to the heart of your, I guess you would call it your life's work at this point, this core of this project.
I mean, I'm here to build community. I'm here
building and establishing community.
Yeah, I'm not going to invite people into the community that will actively toxify it and make it worse. But that doesn't mean I'm going to write off that person entirely. I'm still going to like see if I can find the heart of that person. And if that person is willing to reform and change and atone for past mistakes, as I've had to atone for many of my own mistakes in my own life, then there's no reason why that person shouldn't like be allowed to at least have a chance, right? Like some of the worst people online are not going to be that person forever. I've forgiven bullies in my past, and I look at, there are times where I'll now go on Facebook and look up someone that bullied me in high school or did something really awful to me. And they're out there doing philanthropic work. They have a family. They look like they're a loving dad or a really great person. I'm like, wow, that's great. I can't, the longer I hold this negative image of them in my head, it's not doing anyone any good.
It's just the relic, right? Just to override it with the reality.
And I pray and hope that all the awful things that someone says on, those subreddits or whatever, or even the people that are out there just actively so angry about Universes Beyond can hopefully get to a point in their lives where they don't have to hold that much anger and resentment in their hearts, because I'm sure it's not great for them over a long period of time.
No way. And honestly, you might miss out on incredible gaming experiences because you're rejecting something without even really fully understanding it. I had my paradigm sort of shifted. I recalled this actually in a conversation that I had with Chris Wilson, co-founder of Grinding Gear Games, which was actually the first interview on my channel. Pretty cool conversation, particularly about Magic's secondary market and collecting. If you haven't seen it yet, it's definitely worth a view.
Cool.
Particularly if you enjoyed my conversation with Nathan. Yeah, Chris is incredibly brilliant and has a very unique perspective on Magic also. And in that conversation, I relayed the last thing I said to Mark the last time we had lunch together, which related to, we're sitting in a car together, and right before he got up to just go back in to make more Magic, and I said, Mark, I'm extremely uncomfortable with Universes Beyond. Change my mind. And in about 5 minutes, he did.
Cool.
He did. In
Mark
a sense
also has access, by the way, to so much data that we don't. And so he has a deeper insight into how it's affecting the community, right? So like, it is always fun to talk to the people and that are willing to share some of that.
Yeah, he said, his fundamental thesis is something you've echoed yourself, which is basically, he said, Brian, is it a bad thing if more people are playing and enjoying Magic? Is that a bad thing? Because that's what's happening. Yeah, Hasbro makes gajillions of dollars. Well, honestly, having the company that makes the game that you love making gajillions of dollars is a net gain for everyone.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
there's a lot of nuance to all this, right? Like, obviously, they care more about shareholders necessarily than the experience of your regular person.
There are downsides.
There are going to be a lot of downsides, but I do agree with that fundamental thesis that more players playing is generally a good thing. Now, you can talk about like, am I losing the overall picture of Magic? To me, is it ever going to be the same as it was in the past? And the answer is no, but that's just the nature of how things go. So, there's a lot of like, and here's the thing, right? Like, I don't bemoan someone for being upset about what Universes Beyond has done to the game. I felt many of those feelings myself, especially when I log on and I'm like, man, can I just get a universe that is in Magic instead of the 5th New York setting in a row, But
incidentally, just to interrupt, that is a white sentiment, by the way. The sanctity, the sacredness of tradition, right?
Yeah.
A visual tradition.
And I do appreciate tradition a lot. I think tradition is really important. I come from, Chinese culture has been around for 6,000 years. There's a whole lot of tradition and culture that's really important. And at the same time, in order for consciousness and humanity to progress, sometimes you have to break a low tradition and, you got to break a couple eggs, et cetera. But, I get where people are coming from ultimately is what I'm saying. But my point that I want to make to the world is that the sentiment that you see online is not indicative of the actual percentage of the sentiment in real life about it.
I'd say that that's accurate. I had a kind of a final question for you. And it actually relates to my favorite philosopher and writer. Have you ever read anything by Kurt Vonnegut?
Oh, Vonnegut. Yeah, for sure.
I'm unsurprised. I'm sure we could have another longer conversation about how amazing Vonnegut is. But Vonnegut, throughout his career, and he had a long literary career that spanned decades, was frequently invited to commencements. He would go to colleges and high schools, and there are compilations of his graduate speeches, which I read. And he has a common theme that he echoes through those speeches. He talks to people who are about to graduate from Harvard Business School. They're about to go off into the world, and some of them want to be politicians. Some of them want to be scientists. Some of them want to be heads of state, astronauts, etc. But what he always said at the end of the day was, what really matters is serving your community. Serve your community foremost. If the other things happen, then that's good. But fundamentally, the way that we flourish as a species and the way that we care for each other is by serving our communities. And in my estimation, in my eyes, you are one of the best community service people on planet Earth right now.
Thank you. Wow.
The community you've built is massive and global, spanning millions and millions and millions of people. And seriously, you talk about how negative everything it is, just in general in the news, and how negative sentiment is. And Jimmy, you are a light. You're an amazing radiant light. And I am so grateful for all that you do. On behalf of the global Magic community, thank you for everything that you've done to make Magic what it is today.
Thank you, Brian. That is very kind. And I'm getting better at accepting compliments these days, so I appreciate it.
Please take it. It's very sincere.
I receive. And I do tell people this, I personally have had like a very interesting journey with faith and God myself. I did not grow up religious whatsoever. My parents were never talked about God, never talked about sort of like the universe in that way. I sort of had my own journey to discovering and believing in God. And that part of like what I think, if you want to say it like the universe commands us to do, or the universe asks of us, is to be carriers of light. I think like the most brilliant artists of all time have been incredible carriers of light through their music or their creation. And so I think like in order to be a better carrier or more, a capable carrier, let's say, it requires that your vessel be a little bit more empty of the things that would stop the light from coming in and allowing you to hold it. And so things like ego, things like judgment, and all those sorts of things are things that directly stand in the way of holding that light. And the reason that I really like that analogy and this version of looking at it is that I think one of the things that really turns people off is when preachiness is involved, or a lot of like sanctimonious, like I'm better than thou, holier than thou. As a result, you should listen to me. And I think if you're truly someone that wants to lead community, one of the best ways you can do so is just by being a living example of the things that you are.
Revelatory. That is exactly the answer. Be a good example.
And then, like light does, it attracts things to it without having to do anything but simply exist. Right. So I think like that's part of what I hope to do as a result, and something that I'm constantly learning and being humbled by all the time. When I find myself in moments of judgment or anger or whatever it is, things that come up from my past, or just like old habits die hard type stuff. So thank you for that, Brian. I appreciate you using the word terminology specifically for light, because that is something that I do think about quite often.
Very glad to offer it, seriously. And thank you again for being that light. It has been a profoundly moving and exhilarating experience chatting today. I'm really
thanks for the invite. I was really always happy to be invited. By the way, I tell those people all the time. They're like, "Hey, like I don't want to like burden you or by inviting you." I'm like, invites cost you nothing, and I oftentimes say yes to a lot of stuff. So like, if anyone out there is listening and wants to talk to me about something, like just send me a DM or an email or whatever.
All right. Well, we will certainly talk again. Thank you again for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
And looking forward to future conversations. Take care. I would love your feedback on this series. If you're enjoying the videos, please give me a thumbs up. If there's games you think I might have missed, let me know and I will get to them. See you for the next one.